Well, thank you so much, Keith. We love doing the next right thing. And on Fridays, we get to promote the Spirit World on Saturday, which is tomorrow, our monthly open forum show on the Spirit World, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Please tune in. And we'd love to hear from you because we take a bunch of calls from around the world because it's being broadcasted also on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. So that's tomorrow, the open forum. Today we're going to be talking about two kinds of wisdom. And Adam is going to dive into scripture. We're going to go back and forth, and hopefully you'll learn something today, and you can take it into the weekend to actually teach and share with your family. Adam?
Yeah, Deb. So this, as so many of the topics we talk about, is really kind of close to my heart because, you know, from a psych perspective, you know, training to be a therapist earlier in life and looking at how people make choices differently depending on the season of their life and how they're seeing life and relationships and their goals changing and all of that, you know, this idea that wisdom, morality, even religion for a lot of people is this postmodern idea of if it works for me, it's good, in quotes. If it feels good, it's right. Kind of a very subjective modern idea of a very selfish wisdom where I kind of create the world. You know, I define morality. I define what is good, what is just, and I give myself a pass when I'm not kind or, you know, hurt other people to some extent in life or exploit other people. So the Bible is powerful primarily in the way that Jesus gives us a model for good behavior. But here, when we go into James 3:13 through 18, it's actually really, really intense. This is a letter that James wrote. And I thought it could be kind of powerful for us to go through this line by line because there's just so much packed into it. So let's start at verse 13. Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show his works by a good life in the humility that comes from wisdom. Okay, so here he's asking to the community he's writing to, who there is wise and understanding? Well, let him show his works by a good life in the humility that comes from wisdom. Okay, so we see an idea about, you know, some type of labor or life that is morally good, and we see that humility is part of it. Okay, a little bit general, and you could say like, well, okay, you know, you could define what is a good life in various ways. But as we move forward, we're going to start seeing more and more clearly as more light is cast upon this. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. Okay, so now we see a reference to if you secretly in your heart are jealous of other people and have selfish ambition to get ahead or to take what other people have, don't boast and be false to the truth. So he's saying don't claim to be wise and understanding if you're secretly jealous and have selfish ambition. It's okay to have ambition.
Right.
But if it's at the expense of others, we start seeing that being differentiated. Go ahead, Deb.
And don't walk around saying, "Oh, look at me! I'm being really humble about this, and I'm really, you know, I'm winning God's favor." And you know, when deep in your heart, you really are striving to bring others down as you try to climb.
Yeah, the whole silly thing of I'm more humble than you are. You know. Yeah, and so, you know, we see basically a warning here against being two-faced. Which, of course, you know, we've seen people fall to this in terms of holding out one persona to the world and then living a very different life. Okay, so there's a warning about that. So verse 15, wisdom of this kind does not come down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. So, wow, okay. So he's basically saying that if you're building a worldview and your idea of a good life is about jealousy and ambition that destroys other people, that's not of God. This is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. That's very intense.
Well, and let me just add one other thing. Would you throw into that bucket there when somebody in that position demonstrates their or uses their power and control again to keep others down? So when they exercise that type of level of authority in an improper way, to hurt others, that's another thing. Some people justify that because they're in positions in their work or what they do that they're like, well, I have to do it this way. That's the only way the business is going to succeed. That's the only way it's going to move forward. That's not true. When we're keeping others down like that, I would say that's included in there. What do you say?
Yeah, that's another aspect of selfish ambition. So if I want what somebody else has, that's one aspect of selfish ambition. But what you just described is a more subtle one, and that is when I try to keep others from also attaining,
That's right.
abundance or success because I don't want to share whatever it is, like
Whatever I have. Yeah.
yeah, whatever I have, or I've got some standing, and I don't want to let other people rise up. And and that's why I think they're saying here it's earthly, in the sense that it's not from God. If things are from God, then we should try to be obedient to God's providence and God's intention, God's will in our lives and other people's lives. He may intend to raise somebody else up to a similar position or a superior position to where we're in life, and that could fit God's plans, versus us saying, I'm going to be in control. I'm going to decide.
Yep.
I'm going to be in charge. And as with so many things with sin, it goes back to the Garden of Eden. You can be like God. It's my attempt to mold the world in my vision.
Right. Well, and let's go to Blessed Carlo Acutis. We always talk about him. Great saint. He talked about this idea that everybody has these lights, and these lights are from God. And when we do anything to try to diminish those lights or to put out those lights of others, we are disrespecting God, because when those lights shine and we support each other and keep each other in where we're constantly building each other up as the body of Christ, that is pleasing to God. So, again, what you're talking about is this idea that the haves and the have-nots, right?
Mm-hmm. And it plays out in the spiritual realities also, and that's where this can become very twisted when you start applying an earthly and demonic quote-unquote wisdom, which is based on selfish ambition and jealousy, to spiritual matters. You're really creating something quite deformed, I think. And as I've studied saints and people with different spiritual gifts, and I've also just living my life and interacted in certain things, sadly, the human jealousy does come into this. There's many cases of mystics down through the years, saints down through the years that had gifts, but they end up being shunned by their very religious communities or by, people that want to question
church authority.
that. Yeah, and like one example is one of your favorite saints, Padre Pio, who, suffered, what was it, a decade of suppression. And he was obedient to it, where he wasn't allowed to, I think he wasn't allowed to say Mass publicly or hear confessions.
Right.
But yet he was, in the long run, he was exonerated and declared a saint by the church. And so, was that partly jealousy? Very possibly. He was becoming very famous during his lifetime. I don't know. But I think what James is warning us about is applying earthly and unspiritual human cattiness and jealousy to spiritual matters.
Right. And I know when we come back from the break, you're going to pick up with verse 16, where it talks about this disorder and wickedness. And these two kinds of wisdom, and this is a very powerful passage in the Bible, and this is something that we really want to take line by line, folks, so that you can explain it. First, you can really meditate on it and see if it affects you, right? And then make the necessary corrections, but then also share it with your family and friends and coworkers in your business or wherever you spend your waking hours, because that's the essence of the next right thing. We want all of us to do the next right thing, to get closer to God each and every time we step forward in this world. So it's very, very important. That's why these segments, when we first choose these, we actually think about them and we apply them to ourselves, and then we teach, and that's what solid catechesis is all about. So I know we're going to get ready to stop it right there. We're going to give Keith some ample time to comment on this, because I agree with you, Adam. This is definitely something. It's interesting because you talk about providential. Before we settled on this particular passage, I happened to stumble upon it early on when we were trying to decide, and it's so interesting. It's like God is putting the puzzle pieces right in front of us in order to share and use this platform in a wise way.
Okay, so moving on to verse 16. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every foul practice. Okay, so the fruits, or what comes from jealousy and selfish ambition. Remember, ambition is fine. It's fine to want success and to work hard for success when it's in line with God's will in the world and in your life, of course. But where it's based in jealousy and selfishness, there's disorder and every foul practice. Wow.
Okay, hold on 1 second. In your approved translation, you have foul practice. In my approved translation, I have disorder and wickedness. Okay.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we were saying earlier, I think, about cutting other people down. You know, wickedness is being destructive to other people is one way to look at it, whether it's physically, verbally, emotionally, spiritually, being destructive against other people, and that's tearing other people down.
Right. And Adam, I don't mean to keep interjecting, but I have to tell you, this is sparking a lot of things for me, especially with the work that we do on the spirit world. There are a lot of people right now that feel like they have been cursed by other people. They have truly had these terrible spells and things, whether it's just spoken or people are really deep into the occult and doing those kinds of things, because people feel like, I can't get from under this idea that somebody else is trying to hold me down. So I wonder, does that play into this with this letter from James? Because I find this interesting, because we're talking about where it's a disordered view of things. Could that lead into somebody falling into cursing somebody else?
Well, I think the reference to foul practices or wickedness in the translation you're using could be alluding to that. And we know that from the ancient Near East, and in fact the modern Near East too, the idea of the evil eye, and I think it's in other parts of the world also, but it's essentially envy. When somebody looks with envy upon what others have or other people, that itself is considered a curse. And then some people, of course, try to resort to, actual black magic in addition to feeling envious. Okay, so now let's move on to verse 17. But the wisdom from above is first of all pure, then peaceable, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruits, without inconstancy or insincerity. Okay, so now we have...
Okay, can I just stop you one more time? I'm so sorry, but this is fascinating, because I love different translations of the word. Don't you? I get really into the different translations. Okay, so verse 17 in the Bible that I'm using talks about without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. Ooh. We live in a world today where there's a lot of hypocritical people walking around,
And this harkens back to what James was writing earlier in this segment, where, being false and having jealousy and selfish ambition, but claiming to be wise and pretending to be leading a moral life. So here he's saying there is no inconstancy or insincerity in wisdom that is coming from above. Being peaceable, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruits.
It's all good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, verse 18, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace for those who cultivate peace.
Yeah. Mine says for those who make peace. Yeah. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so we see, there's a comparison or contrast being shown here between disorder, foul practices, and peace and righteousness. And so the world would tell us to be ambitious, to cut down other people, to take what they have and get ahead. Don't let other people succeed. Be scared, and thereby, when we're scared and we feel insecure, we try to viciously get enough to feel secure, but of course it's never enough.
Right.
But the wisdom from God brings about mercy, compliance, peace, the opposite of anxiety and feeling insecure.
Right.
And it's not that God makes you rich, which then you might think would make you feel secure or happy, but God gives you peace. When he sent the apostles out, he didn't say, well, save up a bunch of money from donations before you leave.
Right.
He said, don't take anything with you. Mm-hmm. And just rely on God's
him.
providence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Adam, real quickly, in the 3 minutes that we have, what I'm pulling from this, and I'm not exempt from any of this either, because in the world you can fall easily into this, as you said, with fear, insecurity, all sorts of things that can push you in that area where you could get it out of sync and not in line with God and fall into that way that James is cautioning us. So we're all, because of this broken world, we all have to deal with this at some level. But here's the interesting thing: what I pull from this letter, Adam, and tell me if I'm correct, that you really have to elevate out of your current life and current circumstances and what you think is best for yourself, and really set your eyes and your sights on God, and really align yourself with what he wants for you. Trust completely, and that true wisdom will come, not this false wisdom, which is actually wickedness. Am I reading this correctly? I think I am, but I just want to make sure we have brand new listeners each and every time.
I think you are. I think, what he says at the beginning is, show your wisdom by a good life in humility, as opposed to ambition and aggression and possibly, immoral work. So, and that good life is God's providence. What that good life is might be being a parent, it might be being a business owner, it could be working directly with the poor, it could take many different forms. But if it's done well with an intention of loving charity for others, it's going to be a good life, at least to some extent.
Well, and it's not just saying I'm a good person. It's living that good, godly life. There's a big difference. Because there's a lot of people, I know I have friends that say, well, I'm a good person. I don't have to go to church. I don't have to, but I'm a good person. They say that all the time. But that's a different, we're talking a much bigger picture here. 1 minute, Adam.
Yeah, so I just wanted to encourage people, go and check this letter out. It's James 3:13-18. I can tell you from the exorcism world, the demons try to foment fear primarily, distrust primarily of Jesus, but of other people. They want to cause division between people and isolate. They don't want peace. They don't want gentleness. They don't want mercy. In fact, they want people to hold on to resentment. The demons offer us a demonic wisdom that we need to see clearly, and we need to, more importantly, see clearly what a heavenly wisdom is. And that heavenly wisdom is described here in this section. And so let's try to be sincere, not live two lives, but live one life as wisely as we can with God in his providence and in his word.
Amen to that, Adam Blai. Okay, have a beautiful rest of your day, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow for the Spirit World August Open Forum. All your questions, we love the calls, so please make sure you tune in for the Spirit World, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you tomorrow, but for now, we're sending it back to Keith.